Fantasy Football Warriors, welcome to the Fantasy Football Warriors podcast. We are your hosts, Eddie Bravo, Tank Sinatra. We're going to start off with a little waiver wire, and then we're going to get into the first 4 games of the slate, right?
Yeah.
So
Late waiver wire, to be honest with you.
a little late waiver wire, yeah, but there's still time to make some moves here and there before tomorrow, before Sunday's games, before Friday's game, right? So we got a little time. So we're going to start off with someone I mentioned last week, Will Levis.
Will Levis.
I told everyone last week to put mayonnaise in the coffee, a la Will Levis.
Aye.
And he went out and he led the Titans to an upset victory. I guess you could call it an upset victory, right? I'm pretty sure everyone had the Texans winning that, right?
Yep.
Upset victory against the Texans, completed 18 of 24 for 278 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, 18.1 fantasy points, finishes the QB 10 on the week, quarterback 1 on the week. And with the upcoming schedule, it's not even just a great playoff schedule, which they think they have the best quarterback schedule.
They play
in the playoff.
week 14 to 17. They got Jacksonville twice. They got the Bengals, and then they got the Colts.
Yep, like I said, like I was trying to say, it's not just the playoff schedule either. It's the rest of the way, rest of the season here. Washington, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Jacksonville. Especially the Jacksonville and Indianapolis. Like, those are 2 of those quarterback and wide receiver matchups we're just targeting heavy pretty much every single week in and week out. They have those pretty much the rest of the way here. So, looking good for Will Levis, who just, like I said, put up a good week, and maybe it continues.
Yeah, it's already looking favorable, right? You know, I know that Will Levis, by no stretch of the imagination, was setting the world on fire here early on in the season or even mid-season, but getting down the stretch, this is someone that can probably help contribute, right, to you winning your playoff weeks and maybe even a fantasy championship. So, go put mayonnaise in coffee.
Absolutely, once again. David Moore is another person who had a pretty strong week last week with a 32% target share, 6 for 81, a touchdown against the Chiefs. I think it's worth maybe picking him up if he's still there at this point and just kind of seeing what happens. Obviously, Bryce Young probably put up his best pro performance of his young career against the Chiefs, no less, which is shocking. But he looked good.
How about that?
He looked good, like in all facets. There's no buts here to his performance. He looked good, and if David Moore is going to continue to be the person who benefits the most from it, right, why not see what happens here with David Moore? Panthers are going to be a team that they're not going to sit on a lead ever, so they're always going to be throwing. So if David Moore is going to continue here with a 30-plus target share, it probably doesn't say a 32% target share. Maybe, it comes down 25, 27%. But even that's valuable. And if it continues, you got yourself a pretty strong starter there. So not starting him this week or anything like that. Obviously, it could be a blip in the grand picture here.
Right.
But worth taking a look at and getting on your roster, see if it continues.
Yeah. We do understand that the bye-mageddon is over.
Yep, no buys this week. We forgot to mention that.
No buys this week. So
next week might be brutal, but
right, probably have better options this week. However, these little waiver nuggets are always worth its stashes, right? So moving on, someone else we mentioned last week, Gus Edwards. It is Gus Edwards' time, and that is not happy that J.K. Dobbins left the game early. Last week, got ruled out, I think, in the 4th quarter, after going to the locker room or whatnot. But, we kind of mentioned that, we're in that portion of the season where that wear and tear can start to build up.
Yep.
Running backs are tired, more susceptible to injury. We all know J.K. Dobbins' injury history has not been good. He did suffer a absolute catastrophic knee injury that he had to, kind of claw his way back from. So, was it always in the realm of possibilities?
Yeah, probably, absolutely. Right? And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is an absolute downgrade. You're not getting J.K. Dobbins and what he's been producing. Gus Edwards has been awful all season long. Awful. When you look at, as far as efficiency goes, he's been really bad, and that's why it's been the J.K. Dobbins show. So you're not getting someone who's slotting in there as what J.K. Dobbins has been doing, but he's gonna be the person who gets the workload. I mean, as we saw last week against the Ravens, it was like 9 carries for 10, or no, I think it was 12 yards. 9 carries for 12 yards. Then he got the touchdown, kind of bailed out.
Yeah, bailed him out there.
But obviously no one was starting him because he wasn't, because I hope not, because J.K. Dobbins went into the game healthy. So he's someone who's probably going to be very, very touchdown dependent. I'm not expecting him to wild out efficiency-wise, but he should be getting the touches.
Right.
Chargers are a team that are clicking, scoring a lot of touchdowns for the most part. So it's a clear downgrade from J.K. Dobbins here.
But that's the lens you got to use it. You kind of view it from, right? Is that this late in the season, where are you gonna find just a starting running back?
Yeah,
right? That you can stash, and if it does something for you, great. Yeah. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you have them, and it's a starting running back. Yeah. Maybe only 1 week. Who knows? Maybe J.K. Dobbins comes back.
Hey, I think he's expected to miss a few weeks here, so you've got a starter for a few weeks. Right. We'll see how that continues to work out. I haven't looked ahead at their schedule the rest of the way here, so we'll kind of see. Obviously, against Baltimore last week was one of the most brutal running back matchups. So, but it's been brutal all season long. It's I'm not just talking about last week as far as Gus Edwards' efficiency and how he's looked, and this whole season hasn't looked very good. With that being said, Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal are both people who are guaranteed to be on the wire for you here.
Yep.
You could look at them as well. Maybe they get more touches with Dobbins out. Maybe they don't lean into Gus Edwards. Maybe Edwards continues to be a bum, and they look the way of Hassan Haskins. I'd be more targeting Hassan Haskins. Kamani Vidal has been a healthy scratch for a while now. It's been several weeks. He's just a healthy scratch, and it's been Hassan Haskins stepping in as a 3. So he's another one you could take a look at here, and maybe they split touches. Maybe Hassan Haskins works his way as the, primary rusher here with J.K. Dobbins out. No telling what really bakes out there with that situation. I just know Gus Edwards hasn't been exactly great. Hassan Haskins isn't obviously a career contributor in any kind of way. Take a look at him. We'll see. We'll see what happens next week, or I guess this upcoming week. Braylon Allen is another running back here that we've been talking about. He should be rostered, but maybe he's not, and smaller leagues with smaller benches. Breece Hall, as of recording this Wednesday, has not practiced, which it might not be nothing, but it is a little concerning considering they're coming off a bye, so they just had a whole week off, and he's missing practice.
Didn't practice.
It's a little concerning.
Kind of odd. Something to raise an eyebrow at.
Yeah, if Braylon Allen is on your wire, you need to scoop him up. He shouldn't even be on the wire. We've talked several weeks now.
Oh yeah.
This is handcuff time. Please, if there are high-end handcuffs on your wire, getting him on your bench is crucial, as we've been talking about for several weeks. Now is the time running backs going to start going down with little injuries, as we just saw with J.K. Dobbins. Please get Braylon Allen if he's on your wire.
So another couple of running backs that went down here. So Austin Eckler out, concussion.
Yep.
As of last week, right? More than likely not going to clear the concussion protocol for this week. And Brian Robinson still nursing. I
think it's an ankle.
Is it an ankle?
I think it's something foot related. I'm blanking on the exact injury right now. But yeah, they're both banged up.
So Jeremy McNichols.
He's also looked pretty good in
enters
relief
the conversation here
this season. When you're watching the games, Jeremy McNichols comes in for relief work. He's looked fine, and now it could be the McNichols show. Unfortunately, he lands a brutal matchup against the Titans. So
not the best way to start.
Pick him up if you need him. More than likely, B-Rob or Austin Eckler will be back next week if they missed this week. So kind of a lower end option here. Joe Mixon just went out there and had 12 carries for 22 yards, 19 carries. Something brutal. Absolutely brutal, like 1.7 yards per carry. It's a really bad matchup against the Titans here. So I don't know if you're starting Jeremy McNichols, but
Yeah.
If he's on your bench, no one else is playing him. So, I guess that's kind of the way to, keep away a little bit.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think Rob and Eckler will be back next week unless it's, concussion of all concussions and the ankle injury continues to get worse. Someone to look at who should be in line for the starting job this week, though. Devon Vele is someone who's coming off of 3 straight weeks of 10-plus PPR fantasy points. Career high 80 receiving yards last week. The playoff schedule is actually pretty dandy for Devon Vele, who's kind of grown into the number 2 role for Denver behind Cortland Sutton. They've got Colts, Chargers, Bengals. We've kind of got shootout territory, except, maybe the Colts. You're going to need Anthony Richardson to kind of perform. But against the Chargers and Bengals, you're looking at potential shootouts between Broncos and those aforementioned teams. Devon Vele is someone who could benefit from those shootouts. Obviously, higher passing, you get a receiver who's being targeted at a pretty high rate. He's definitely someone who could help you out here as a flex option if you need him heading into the last few weeks here. Dontavian Wicks back here again.
After the Romeo Doubs concussion now.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm too excited about this. I'm sure there's some people that are pretty excited, but he's one of the league leaders in drops this season. Obviously, we did this earlier, I want to say in the first month of the season, somewhere around there, where I think it was Christian Watson was out. Everyone was, Dontavian Wicks, here he comes. And then he just went out there and was not that exciting. Yeah. Like I said, he leads the leagues in he's one of the league leaders in drops. I'm having a hard time getting super excited about it, but he may be on your wire, and maybe it happens this week. Romeo Doubs has already been ruled out. They get a fine matchup against the Packers this week. It's definitely a matchup with shootout potential. That could very well be the most exciting game on Thanksgiving. So if you're in a spot start this week, maybe injuries, Dontavian Wicks is kind of a fringe starter, risky, but could manifest with Romeo Doubs out.
All right. That'll do it for unless you got anyone else.
Nah, that'll do it for the waiver wire section.
That'll do it for the waiver wire. We are about to get into the first 4 games of the slate.
We'll be right back.
Fantasy Football Warriors, here we go. First games of the slate. 3 tomorrow. Thanksgiving. 1 Friday.
I guess we should have said at the top of the show, Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all. That's right. Hope it's going to be blessed, filled with love, friends and family.
Yeah, this video will probably be put out late Wednesday, but by the time anyone's watching it, it'll be Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all right, here we go. So,
Bears,
Lions.
Yeah.
Mr. Caleb looked great last week, completed 68% of his passes, threw for 340, 2 touchdowns, scored 26.9 fantasy points. That's the good news, right?
Yeah, he's been playing great. He's he got a bump post-bye where you saw him improve, and then after Shane Waldron, thank God, got fired, he saw another bump. Surprise, surprise, you bring in Shane Waldron and your quarterback's going to look like ass. Who would have guessed?
Not me.
Everyone, except for the Bears. I don't understand.
Hey, we talked about it all offseason, right? They've got all this talent, but if there's anything that's going to hold them back, it's going to be that coaching staff. And sure as anything, there we were. It happened, right? They were the Avengers of assembling the worst coaching staff you could have asked for. So they weren't collecting Infinity Stones.
They were collecting negative Infinity Stones. I don't know. I can't come up with something wittier than that.
All right, so bad news for Caleb is that he's got to go against this Lions defense this week.
Yep, Lions have not allowed over 13 fantasy points to an opposing quarterback over the last month, and they've only allowed over 20 fantasy points to a quarterback twice the entire season.
That includes Jordan Love, C.J. Stroud this past month.
Yeah.
2 quarterbacks attached to good offenses. It's not like they were playing scrubs.
Yeah.
So
it's just not a quarterback matchup. I would probably look to avoid Caleb this week. The good news is if you need Caleb, like I said, he's been playing better. He's been using his legs a lot more. I think he's averaging about 30 rushing yards per game over the last little bit. So if you need Caleb, there's probably a floor here of 13 fantasy points. But I would look elsewhere for sure.
Absolutely. All right, moving on. Swift, another bad matchup.
Brutal matchup here, and he's lost all of the goal line work to Roshan Johnson.
Rojo.
So You don't even have touchdowns to bail you out. He's going to need a 60-yard run to the house. I'm not sure.
You don't want to bank on that, right?
Not in this matchup, so I would look to avoid the running backs as well. Wide receivers for the Bears here, kind of an interesting thing. Teams are having to stay aggressive on the lines. Obviously, there's no running the ball, staying safe. They're just passing and passing and passing. Hasn't turned into success for quarterbacks, but it has kind of turned into success here for wide receivers, not tight ends. Tight ends have been brutal.
Oh, yeah.
But, so either Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen could find some room here. I don't know which one it is.
Roll the dice if you're feeling lucky.
Maybe it's two of them. Maybe it's all three of them. Maybe Caleb Williams is just cooking, and maybe they'll probably still lose the game, but maybe they throw enough that all three of them produce.
Yeah.
Obviously, Keenan Allen had 16 targets last week. Rome Odunze 10. DJ Moore 7. All of them had fine days. Maybe that's what happens this week. I don't know. More than likely, it's just one of them that has a productive day, but I can't tell you who it is.
Keenan Allen just popped off last week.
For the 16 targets, yeah. Rome Odunze's been the most targeted player over the last few weeks, so maybe he's the best bet.
Right.
Which I would say he's probably the best bet just off of that.
Or DJ Moore, just because, on paper, he is...
the vet kind of thing.
The vet, the wide out one, right? So...
you got avenues,
like we said,
whichever one you believe.
Roll the dice, baby.
Yep. On the Lions side of thing, Bears are generally a poor matchup for wide receivers. However, the last 2 weeks, you've had 2 receivers go for over 150 yards. They've been outside wide receivers. So kind of a interesting thing with Amon-Ra, who's the number 1, but obviously primarily plays in the slot. So I think Jameson Williams could find some room this week. Jameson Williams week. Pretty exciting. Laporta is also someone who's set up well from a matchup standpoint. There's been a lot of tight end goodness coming from the Bears. But he's been kind of all over the place and brutal that I can't recommend it with strong confidence.
Yeah.
This is a week where he would be a streamer, right? That's all he is. It's just a matchup dependent streamer right now. Roll the dice on Laporta. If you feel like it, Jameson Williams is set up incredibly well. However, Amon-Ra doesn't draw the matchup statistic, but it could be him for all I know that goes for 100 over the 150, right?
And on what planet do you sit Amon-Ra?
Don't sit him. He's a must start every single week. He could go out there have a great week. He could go out there have a floor week. You just got to stay in your lineup, obviously. Jared Goff, I think is a risky play, but I think he does draw a strong start here. Just last week, Sam Darnold had a really strong week. That could be Jared Goff this coming week. Bears have lightened up on the passing side of things the last couple of weeks. Jared Goff, if you've been playing him, I think this is a perfectly fine spot here. Just know there's some risk that there could be not a lot of passing. It could be a Sonic and Knuckles game, which brings me to Sonic. They never
avoid Sonic and Knuckles.
Absolutely must start ever. Bears have been a run funnel for pretty much the entire season. Sonic and Knuckles are a must starts either way, but once again, must starts. And back on the Jared Goff note, over 20 fantasy points from QBs 3 of the last 5 weeks. So there's room here for Jared Goff to have a productive day.
All right.
Giants Cowboys. Battle of the bums.
What are we doing?
Hopefully blowing everything up. It's over.
Giants Bear. Tell me what we are doing. Okay. All right. If you got Dowdle, right? Play Dowdle. If you got Tracy, play Tracy.
Yep, we told you to play Dowdle last week in a strong matchup. If you did, you probably feel pretty good about what you got. This is once again a really, really strong matchup. Obviously, we were preaching Bucky Irving or Rashad White, especially Bucky Irving last week. And he went off and popped off. So, once again, we are telling you, Rico Dowdle, strong start. If you've got him, this is the matchup to get him in your lineup. Tyron Tracy and Neighbors both draw very strong matchups. I'd be a little more excited about Tracy just because Giants have been just a cesspool of ass in the passing game. We might be getting Drew Lock this week, though, with Tommy DeVito banged up. I don't know what you're going to get quarterback-wise. The Drew Lock has looked...
Just stay away from all those quarterbacks.
Looked really bad in training camp and stuff, so let's just hope it's fine enough for Neighbors. Obviously, he had 12 fantasy points last week. You're not going to turn your nose up at that. You would have liked it to be more. He's doing the best with his circumstance. However, this is a really good matchup, so I think Neighbors is a strong start. Tyron Tracy is probably a must-start. There is some risk here. Obviously, he was set up better than the production would have alluded to, but it was fine last week. The points were fine, but hopefully this is a better week. The Cowboys obviously have been a great matchup for running backs.
Yeah,
so
they're allowing 4.5 yards per rush, fourth most fantasy points per game.
Yeah, I think Tyron position. I
mean,
Cowboys, kind of a deeper stat dive, I guess. Cowboys have allowed at least one tight end touchdown 5 of the last 6 weeks. Theo Johnson is a tight end who's been kind of trending up with targets, yardage-wise. I think this is a week that Theo Johnson can find himself a touchdown.
There you go.
And for that, I think he's a fringe streamer if you need him. Throw him in your lineup and hope for the best. Lamb is always a must-start. Obviously, he's still the focal point of the offense, and you just hope it is enough to translate to fantasy points. Draws a good matchup.
That's it.
So Rico, Lamb, Neighbors, Tracy, all people I would be fine with having in my lineup, and Theo Johnson as a fringe streamer.
Boom. Moving on.
That'll do it.
Going to Lambeau.
Next up, Dolphins Packers.
Dolphins Packers. So, Tua, right? Been playing great.
Yep.
Right? Last 2 weeks, he's thrown for 7 touchdowns. Put up some very favorable fantasy numbers, right? But does that keep up? Does that keep up in Lambeau? The Packers play harder at home. Their defense just plays tougher at home for whatever reason. They're at home, right? Could be the elements, could be the weather, could be the cold. Statistically, historically, they say that Tua doesn't play well in the cold. However, whatever you want to do with that, right?
The cold versus non-cold splits are definitely interesting.
Yeah,
it's hard to really say if the weather's under 50 degrees, you can't get Tua in your lineup. It's hard to say, especially with how well he's been playing.
It's 58, you can't play Josh Allen.
Yeah,
don't do it.
It's weird. It's weird.
Their defense does play tougher at home. So even though Tua's been playing well, there's still potential for Tua to play well, right?
Yeah, and it's only a slightly negative matchup all around here for both the Dolphins and Packs. So they're both, better defenses, but none of them are shut down defenses by any stretch of the imagination here. So there's quiet shootout potential, I think, in this game. This could definitely be the most exciting game on the slate. Both of these offenses have, at times, gotten rolling, and I think this is a matchup with two better defenses that could keep the game interesting, keep both of these offenses playing hard. So there's quiet shootout potential here, and for that reason, I think 2-0 still remains a strong start, especially with how well he's been playing. Jordan Love, strong start as well. As far as the wide receivers go, Waddle obviously cooked last week, but he's been brutal the rest of the season.
Right, do you want to chase the points?
There is, arguments to be made. Obviously, the biggest indicator of future fantasy points is past fantasy points scored. So there's that perspective. Maybe Jalen Waddle, this is the turning point. Maybe you chase the points. Maybe you look at the rest of the season and be like, okay, he's just been a no factor. And I mean, nothing changed in his usage really. First week target share remained the same. And maybe you say, okay, I'm not going to chase it. It's kind of up to you. Do you believe this is a turning point for Waddle? Future fantasy points are coming from the past fantasy points. Or do you think it's just been brutal and this is kind of flash in the pan? I can't say for you, but I think it keeps, at least last week's performance keeps Waddle in the kind of risky strong start where if this game pops off, you could find some fantasy success. Same goes for Hill, who's been a letdown most of the season, but if this game pops off, you could find a fine enough performance. Devon Achane and Jonnu Smith are the two on the Dolphins offense that have been primarily benefiting from the pretty strong offensive performances that we've seen from the Dolphins last few weeks. So, Achane and Jonnu must starts. 15 plus fantasy points to tight ends through the last 4 weeks against the Dolphins. As we move to the Packers side of things, 15 plus fantasy points against the Dolphins here. Tucker Kraft, who's been brutal for the last few weeks, draws a good matchup. Could definitely be a spot where Tucker Kraft finally kind of reemerges as from the early season success. I think he's a really strong streamer. He's probably been dropped in most leagues. I think this is a perfectly fine week to get him into your lineup. And honestly, streaming tight end is probably the best decision you could make.
Yeah, right now.
If you don't have Brock Bowers or McBride, I guess Jonnu Smith at this point, you're probably playing the streaming game. I mean, last week, I dropped the sack right on my opponent's chest there and played Noah Gray. And
look at that.
That benefited.
Man,
what was it, like
killed it.
4 for 40, 2 touchdowns.
Killed it.
Just
I know I had Otten last week and really didn't produce anything. He's been super hot, and then it was kind of like, you know, kind of a mad game for him. But
anyway, Tucker Kraft I think is a perfectly fine streamer. Josh Jacobs remains a must start the rest of the way here. And as far as the wide receivers go, it is such a mess over there, and that was kind of how I felt in the off season. Was everyone wanted one of these wide receivers to be the guy, but I just kind of felt like it's just No one's going to emerge. None of these wide receivers are alpha enough to emerge. All of them are just good. That's how I feel about Jayden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontayvion Works. All of them are just fine. None of them are going to emerge as this alpha. That was kind of how I felt in the offseason. I didn't draft a ton of any of these guys because of that. Yeah. It's kind of how it's worked out. It's just like any one of these guys could have a good week. Any one of them can have a bad week. None of them is emerged.
Pretty much.
As far as
exactly what it's turned into.
My lean for this particular week, Christian Watson, I think he's the deep threat that's kind of going to thrive in this matchup. It's kind of what we've seen. As far as most productive wide receivers go, it's kind of been your dominant outside wide receivers producing against the Dolphins. So I think Christian Watson, if I had to take a wild, I don't know, guess is the right word, but we're going to go with guess. Wild guess here at which wide receiver is going to produce. Christian Watson is my guess.
Gotcha. The only thing I'll say about Jayden Reed is, even though the stats, right, for what the Dolphins allow in the slot is tough, there might be some wiggle room here, might be some potential for Jayden Reed to produce if Christian Watson and Dontayvion Weeks can keep Jalen Ramsey and Fuller kind of busy on the outskirts, on the outside perimeters. There could be something there to have there in the middle of the field where typically the Dolphins are pretty tough, right? So maybe some potential for Reed, but again, just like you said, best guess. I guess that's not a word we want to use, but
it's kind of the best you can do with the Packers.
Right.
Moving on, Raiders Chiefs. Chiefs, hanging on to the skin of their teeth last week against the Panthers, and then taking that L against the Bills the week prior. Looking rough. It's caught up to them. They've looked rough all season long, and it's finally kind of caught up to them here. Anyway, but with that being said, it still hasn't manifested into a ton of fantasy points here. We're still looking at the same thing as we mentioned last week. Tight end slot is kind of where you're targeting the Chiefs at. Luckily, the only player you want to play on the Raiders pretty much is their tight end, Brock Bowers. Been killing it. You love to see it. Must start this week. I would avoid... blanket on the name here.
Who you talking about?
Raiders starting wide receiver, top end, underrated
Jacoby
talent.
Myers?
Jacoby Myers. There we go, man. Blanket. Anyway, I would avoid Jacoby Myers despite the strong play last week. It's Trent McDuffie, right? Pat Surtain's been great, but that's kind of a flash in the pan for Pat Surtain. I doubt he gets a bad day from Trent McDuffie the following week. These are two of the top corners in the league. He's going to draw the both of them. Pat Surtain, I can't tell you why he was able to get past the Pat Surtain led secondary last week, but I don't think he makes it a second week in a row where Jacoby Myers runs free. If you've got a different take, you go with that. That's just how I feel. I would avoid Jacoby Myers this week. Brock Bowers. There's no slot wide receiver here that you're looking at for the Raiders either. Yeah. Brock Bowers is the only one that I would want to have in my lineup this week.
The only thing that would even slightly worry me about Bowers is who the hell is the quarterback for the Raiders right now after Minshew went down?
I think they're rolling Desmond Ridder.
Ah, Ridder. That's right. He is over there.
Yep. I think they're bypassing.
I guess he's competent enough.
We can use that word. Like I said, Brock Bowers is playing too well. He's just got to be started in a good matchup here. Bench everyone else. Just avoid everything else. I highly doubt anything else can be worth it.
Yeah, don't play no Raiders running backs.
Amir Abdullah has been finding some room in the receiving game, but it's been mostly touchdowns the last couple of weeks.
Right.
It's just like, Raiders are kind of tough on the ground, honestly. They're kind of a pass funnel. Not kind of. They're a pretty big pass funnel. They get thrown all over. Noah Gray, I was just talking about, has been finding some room the last couple of weeks.
Victory lap
with Kelsey a little bit, and it's a really strong tight end matchup against the Raiders as well. So I think honestly, Travis Kelsey and Noah Gray are both strong starts, and I would be perfectly fine with rolling Noah Gray out there in another strong matchup. He'd go out there and have another strong day. Obviously, there's always risk with Noah Gray as he's not the starting tight end,
right?
But there's always risk with every other tight end in the league, and Noah Gray's been playing well. And as we mentioned, the single best stat for predicting future fantasy points is pass fantasy points. So he's been scoring fantasy points.
Always
gets
you opportunity to play more. Right?
Exactly. So that's what we're looking at for Noah Gray, and a strong tight end matchup. Kelsey and Noah Gray, I think, are both players you could look at as strong starts. Yep. Patrick Mahomes, Xavier Worthy are also strong starts and a really good passing matchup. D-Hop's been kind of fading away here, and I guess it makes sense. He's been kind of washed up the last couple of seasons already. When they traded for him, it was like, hopefully it can happen.
Right.
But it's more been, not really happening.
Yeah, since week 9, averaging 5 targets, 40 yards, and 10 fantasy points per game.
Yeah, so
nothing
it's fine.
To write home about.
Yeah, he's a flex. He's a flex option in a good matchup here, but Xavier Worthy is the one that's kind of been trending up, and this could be the week he pops off. I think that's that.
That'll do it. That's the waiver.
Raiders
that's
Chiefs.
The first 4 games of the slate.
Thursday through Friday taken care of.
There you go. So, that's going to do it for us for the Tank Sinatra. This is Eddie Bravo. We are signing out. Join the militia!
Yeah!